Today's song is A New Tomorrow from Swami Kriyananda's oratorio, Christ Lives. And I wanted to, before I started playing the song for you, and let me bring up the title here. We have it as an antidote for actually quite a lot of different negative emotions. Fear of failure is the one that Swami Kriyananda assigned, as we'll talk about. And the others are a variety of different energies that are just things that you need to shake yourself out of, in a way. And A New Tomorrow is a fabulous song for shaking out of just things you get stuck in, like powerlessness and timidity, that sense of being just unable to kind of move and do anything. Complacency and boredom and resignation to fate kind of go along with that, of just not having the energy to get up and go. Shame and guilt also come into play, as we'll see, and I think also attachment to habits, any of these things that can drag you down. Now, before I begin playing, just wanted to read Swami Kriyananda's introduction to this that he used in some of the Christ Live oratorio slideshows years ago, and he writes, "Dawn, arrows of light shoot upwards through the morning sky, driving the shadows westward in disarray. Thus may the shafts of inner clarity disperse our darkest fears and doubts. From today onward we'll live in thy light."
When the dawn breaks and then the morning sends the sun high in the sky, who would hide from heaven's glory? Who would pass the challenge by? La 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 la. When the sun's high in the sky, there's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand.
So, A New Tomorrow. This is one of the early pieces in the Christ Lives oratorio, actually really the second piece, as we'll talk about in just a little bit. And in the original slideshow, it came at a point where in the pilgrimage to the Holy Land, he finally arrived in Palestine, and Kriyananda said that this song was meant to express the spirit of modern Israel, and it has that kind of fortitude and energy. Because Israel is a country that's had to forge its existence out of many challenges, forging it out of the desert, out of sheer determination and willpower, and turning the land into something arable, and also fighting against all the pressures around it that are always trying to destroy it, as we know in our modern world. And they don't let those challenges drag them down. They just keep going forward and going forward. And that's the message in the song of forgetting the past. It's a new day. All your trials have prepared you now to seek the highest within you. And there's no need to wait for conditions to be perfect. That's a big part of that message, is that Israel has far from perfect conditions in that they don't let that drag them down. So you want to be strong and never give in to those kinds of challenges, and you will be victorious in that way. Now, expressing that spirit, as you heard in the song, A New Tomorrow starts with this strong guitar beat, and then the men singing in a strong unison. There's really no space. As I said, this is an antidote for timidity. This is not a timid song at all, and you get that kind of heavy energy there. And it's not heavy energy, but it is really centered in the lower chakras, to be grounding in the lower centers, because you really can't move forward unless you have the positive energy of those bases. You have the determination in the first chakra, you have the fluidity and adaptability in the second chakra, and you have the willpower and the self-control in the third chakra. So the heavy strum and the men singing really energize those three lower chakras here. And that grounding helps us remember that we need to be practical in our aspirations, practical in our idealism, and not let great dreams get away from us to the point where we can't feed ourselves and we can't clothe ourselves and house ourselves and do the practical things in the world that groundedness really helps you do. So that energy is also kind of flowing up to the heart a little bit at the beginning, when the dawn breaks and then the morning. Now the dawn is, of course, I think the spiritual eye, the dawning of higher awareness, the dawning of greater consciousness. Sends the sun high in the sky. So we're seeing that these words are speaking to a higher awareness and letting that grounded energy draw up into the torso and even into the heart and kind of out into the arms, which are connected to the heart center. And that's the dawn that's really shining on, the dawn up here is shining on those lower centers and inspiring them, calling them up to awaken out of lower consciousness where things can drop down, and not to deny their reality, but to invite it to rise. Who would hide from heaven's glory? Who would pass the challenge by? Those words are there to say, no, don't just be complacent with where you are and what you're doing, but rise to that challenge, be invited to something higher. And we have in this song a repetition of the verses where we sing, and then there's just la 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 la. And it's not words, it's just the melody again. It's just the rhythm and the melody without the thoughts around it. And I think the function of this is to kind of help us feel, without the overtones of the words, it's like just feeling the response of those lower centers to say, yes, we will respond to the challenge, we will rise. You might say that heavier rhythm is a bit martial, like in martial music, or, like the Battle Hymn of the Republic and so forth. But in a great pun, it also marshals the energy of those lower centers to wake up and rise. Now then we move to the second verse where the women sing. There's a morning for every nation when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. Now, as often happens when our women singing by themselves, the energy is drawn more into the heart and the upper chest, and also kind of moving up into the throat. Now, the nation here is very interesting to think about, because there are both inward and outward meanings. Anytime we run into the songs within Ananda music that have that kind of outward addressing of us and we, there's two ways to look at it. One is, of course, talking to other people, talking to the community, and as a singer in a choir, you're often trying to share that message. But then we also have the inward expression of it, which is, as Lahiri Mahashai said of the Mahabharata story, that all these different characters in the Mahabharata are talking about our inner psychological kingdom, our inner tendencies, our desires, our likes, our dislikes, our habits, and all these different things that go on within ourselves. And that's where the real battle in the Mahabharata is taking place, is within our own consciousness. And so when we look at a song like A New Tomorrow from this standpoint, and we're talking about the nation, it's the nation of our psychological qualities, the nation of the spine and all the chakras and the qualities that they energize and represent. So inwardly, it's not about what's going on in Israel, it's about what's going on inside ourselves. And here the chakras are waking up. They're turning upwards as opposed to downward and outward. The chakras are turning upward to meet that sun and greet it and respond to that call to liberation. And in fact, if you think about it in yoga, all of the chakras in the spine have to be open for the kundalini energy at the base of the spine to rise fully up to the spiritual eye and eventually to the crown chakra. So it's really necessary that we open all of those chakras there. So now that we've at least woken them up, they join in unison together, the men and the women singing, "Even so," all of us together. Now, "even so" is an interesting contrast, because the verse before said there's a mourning for every nation and a time for your destiny, but even so, which says despite that, even so, all of us together in unison can create a better land, regardless of whether it's time for a destiny, regardless of whether it's the perfect time or the perfect conditions. As I said before, we can leave the past because a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. So what we're responding to here is that idea of destiny, of eventual spiritual liberation, which is the destiny of every soul. But we're saying, well, why wait? There's a lot we can do right here, right now, and all the chakras together, creating a better land, the landscape within the spine, can create a new spiritual life right here, right now, focused upwardly on high ideals and high consciousness. And isn't that something that every one of us on the spiritual path has at sometimes experienced? We've had a moment, as expressed in the song, where we knew that our lives had been transformed in some irreversible manner. Who and what we were before that moment has gone away, and it no longer matters. And as Sri Yukteswar said, he said, "Forget the past. The vanished lives of all men are dark with many shames. But everything in future will improve if you make the right spiritual effort now." And that's the spirit of this song, pushing forward despite all of that past, and giving us a receptivity. Now, what's interesting, I think, is that the song doesn't actually come much past the throat chakra in this. It's looking toward the spiritual eye and engendering a connection with that receptivity to divine energy and the energy that comes in through the medulla, the cosmic energy there, which is like the energization exercises, where we're bringing all that energy in and kind of getting it through the medulla and preparing for it to go up to the spiritual eye. And to deepen that, the song drops the guitar, and we go into the four-part harmony with all the singers, which kind of lets go of that lower chakra energy and brings it much more fully up here into like the fourth and fifth chakra, into the throat. And really grounds the longings of the heart, grounds what can be the non-committal dreaminess of the throat chakra, kind of these doubts and things that come into play, and really, again, grounding it to say, we're going to affirm liberation as that new goal. And that's really the call of a new tomorrow. Now, I want to say a little bit about where it's placed in the oratorio. It's typically the second song, the way we perform it now. Children of God is first, and we'll come to that song in a later session, which is really this clarion call to say, hey, everybody, wake up to your real destiny of finding God within yourself. And then we go to a new tomorrow, which is like practicing the energization exercises, where we're not necessarily trying to bring the energy all the way up here to the spiritual eye, but we're trying to get it all up from, everywhere in our body and focus it upward and get ready to meditate. And then the song that comes immediately after it is Psalm of David, which totally changes the energy and goes from this strumming, kind of very energetic movement to a soft harp that says, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. And as Swami Kriyananda says, that lifting your eyes up to the hill is lifting the eyes in meditation and focusing at the spiritual eye. So, as I said, this song, A New Tomorrow, is very much like energizing before meditation that gets you prepared to then focus all your energies energetically and calmly at the spiritual eye. So there's quite a bit going on in the song as far as negative emotions are concerned. Now you can just see with forward-moving vigilance and that sense of overcoming a lot of just downward-casting energy, we overcome things like timidity, complacency, resignation to fate, that's the forget the past part, and fear failure. Ananda assigned this for day 30 of Secrets of Emotional Healing, which he says, the secret of overcoming fear of failure is to not be attached to success. Concentrate on willpower and energy, which brings success. Even your failures, then, will become stepping stones to even greater achievements. And certainly the song has that kind of power and energy. So that leave the past message as well, I think also treats the emotions of guilt and shame, where you're brooding on past mistakes, you're brooding on something that's not at all about the present. So leave those things behind and go forward. And lastly, two more things with this song is that by reversing the movement of energy in the spine, as we've brought it up here, if you inwardly take that and go backwards, you take a grounding, an energy that's grounded and reaching up toward the light of destiny, and instead you have an ungrounded state of shying away from any higher potential. And that's the state of attachment to past habits, and which is to say attachment to the past, which of course goes along with the fear of failure. And finally, the opposite quality of being open and receptive to the higher truths is to be closed off from any reality greater than just emotions and sensual experiences, where there's really no inspiration or lack of energy. And that simply is the state of being bored. And so I think it's very much worth a try listening to the song and singing it. And the next time you really feel kind of just bored or stuck or complacent, sing this song and see if you can shake yourself out of that very quickly and find that motivation and find that energy to move forward.
When the dawn breaks and then the morning sends the sun high in the sky, who would hide from heaven's glory? Who would pass the challenge by? La 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 la. There's a morning for every nation when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. So all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. There's a morning for every nation when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la.